Alright, so I'm actually going to my paper. So you guys are going to receive this paper tomorrow from the sub. This is actually the instructions that every junior is going to get, and they're all writing the same essay. So, the first part of it I've actually put onto Google Classroom. So it's going to be talking about how, through what we've read this semester so far, we are coming up with a thesis about what being an American is, or what are those qualities about being an American. Some people have asked if it needs to be positive, and it doesn't. I mean, there are some people who have some negative traits that they think of what it means to be an American. Some people, I've heard people say lazy, I've heard people say ignorant, and that's fine too. As long as you can argue your way out of that and use evidence to support that, the evidence that from our readings. Okay, so let's talk about how we might divide this up. You're going to have two different methods on your classroom. You only need to complete one of them. You can do both if you want, but you don't have to. The first method will be thinking of 3 qualities of what being an American is. So if off the top of my head I'm just saying myself, I think determination is a key to being an American. And to me, that's the ideal American. It doesn't necessarily mean this is what everybody in America has, but this is the idea of what a real American would be. Okay? Another thing I have is equality. I feel like if you're going to live in America, we should all be equal. And finally, resiliency. Okay? About, people can put me down, I can fail, but I'm still going to get up, and I'm going to try my best, and I'm going to try to overcome. So once I come up with 3 different qualities, and again, it's whatever you want. There's some suggestions given, but you guys can pick whatever word you want. After that, you want to have a couple of different things to support it. Now, on your paper, it's going to say author number 1 and author number 2, and you're going to find out that sometimes I'm going to say the author's name, and I might actually say the literary piece, but you guys will get the gist of that. Okay, so if I'm going to talk about determination, I know that I can use the Susie Wong piece. Okay, I could use several things, but it's my essay, so I want to use the Susie Wong piece. I want to talk about how she realizes that Asian Americans, women, need to push through their stereotypes, that they're not passive women, and they can be so much more than that, okay? Another thing that I can use for determination is my shot from Hamilton, okay? And if you are quoting this, you want to use the last name of the writer of the musical, whose last name is Miranda. So anyway, he talks about how he's got this shot, or he's got this opportunity, and he's going to make the most of it in that rap. So determination, I would use these 2 pieces to support my idea of determination. Okay? The next thing would be equality. There's a lot I can do with equality, but I think the Declaration of Independence, since we're talking about the beginning of our country, talks a lot about how we're all humans and we're endowed with these God-given rights, and that we should be equal. Okay? And then, even a couple hundred years later, we've got Langston Hughes' poem. It's definitely not perfect, but he talks about how someday, tomorrow, he's going to be at the same table. Right now he's being told that he has to go eat in the kitchen, but he knows that tomorrow doesn't mean literally tomorrow for him, but it means in the future for his people, they're going to have a place at the table, and they're going to be equal. So he had that dream and that desire also for equality, and that's what America represents to him. Final thing is resiliency. Again, I can use lots of things, but I want to use the I Am Joaquin poem. And I feel like that poem goes through so much, not just a couple hundred years worth, but thousands of years worth, where the author talks about his people, the Aztec Indians, all the way through, about generations and generations of people that have been oppressed and what they've gone through. And I really feel like he's saying, look at the thousands of years that our people have been oppressed, but yet what we need to do is we all need to rise up to the occasion. We need to fight for our rights, and this is all happening in the 1950s and 60s with the civil rights movement for the Mexican Americans. And he's saying, I am Joaquin. We all are Joaquin. This is our job. This is our duty. And also to think about the future for our children and the future generations. So I feel like there's a lot of stuff about resiliency that I could pull from there. The other thing I can do is I could talk about Malcolm X. I mean, even though he was known for advocating violence and, he could go with equality too because he wanted equality. But I want to pull out the parts that he was with the Muslim Americans and he had a leader and he kind of even went against that. But there's been years that he talks about how the African Americans have been oppressed and how even the government is not standing up for them, the police, the FBI, and he continues to mimic that same thing that the Declaration of Independence, or the people that were writing that, were saying, that if the government does not exist to protect us, then we have to do something about it. And in his piece, he continually says that we should do whatever is necessary to protect ourselves. So even though we keep being put down, even though our people are being murdered, sometimes by policemen and sheriffs, that we need to rise above that, we need to be a resilient people, not just give up. So he's a piece that I would use for that. But there's so many. I could use any of these things for it. So this is one way to do it. Know that your body paragraphs then would be all about that first characteristic or quality of what being an American is. And then the next body paragraph, the next quality, etc. Okay? Now I'm going to go over here so you guys can see the second method. The second method of how I would break it up is by author. So, or by the literary work. So I could think of, I'm going to say Walt Whitman, okay, with his poem, I Hear America Singing. We've talked about how that really shows a strong work ethic. They could do whatever they wanted, but they were singing while they were doing it, so they were showing that they were very happy about being able to work, which might be a different picture than what we think of Americans today. You know, we want things handed to us. But anyway, back then, being an American was about having a strong work ethic. So in my bars here, I would think of one or two characteristics that this poem right here talks about. So I'm going to say strong work ethic. And I'm also going to say happiness. Okay? And then the next body paragraph might be all about a different work. Which one do I want to take? Let's say the Declaration of Independence. In the Declaration of Independence, what are some qualities that that particular document represents? We could talk about the pursuit of happiness, that everybody should be able to pursue their own dreams. And in this, I could be talking about, the American dream. Why is it that people come from all over the world to America? Because they want a better life for themselves and for their children, their future generations. So I could be talking about that. I could be talking about the economic freedom. Okay, and if I only have one thing to talk about, that's okay. I just want to make sure I have two examples of pursuing happiness. But I'm going to pick another thing too. I'm going to say freedom. I know that kind of sounds real general, so I could get specific. More freedom to govern ourselves, because they were freedom to govern ourselves, because they were really revolting against the king and his tyrannical, his ways of tyranny. How's that? And then the final thing that I'm going to talk about is, not Malcolm X, sorry, Martin Luther King Jr. Okay, and his piece, which was Stride Towards Freedom, on that bright yellow paper. Stride Towards Freedom. You guys get it? Okay, so what are a couple of things that I feel like this piece really pulls out? Again, I'd have my pieces out and I'd be looking at it, and I'm going to talk about how he says, I know he talks about not being passive in his piece, but I want to turn that into a positive thing. So, how can I say not being passive in a positive way? I'm going to say that he is, he's motivated, okay? He's motivated to make a difference and a change. He talks really a lot about if you just sit there and you accept it, what's being done to you, that you're just as bad as the oppressor. So I'm going to say, if you're an American, you're motivated to make that change and to be better. The other thing that he talks about this is that whole rising up and being resilient again. So I would talk about resiliency in here. Okay, so again, now this is going to be structured where each body paragraph is about a particular piece that we read or the author, okay? And in those body paragraphs, I need to have one or two characteristics of what being an American would be in that particular poem or that document or that short story, whatever it is that we read. If you can only think of one quality or characteristic, then make sure that you have two examples of it, aka two direct quotes that you can pull out of there. All right, so on the Google Classroom assignment, you'll notice that there's two tables or charts there. I've given you an example of one, and then it says 1, 2, 3, so you're going to come up with either 3 characteristics, and then I just wrote the pieces here, but you are going to write the actual direct quote. Okay, so you know, I would find a part of my shot about how he needs to rise up, or something like that. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Okay, so what you guys want to do is do your best on this. This is due today. If you don't finish it before you leave, because I know we got behind a little bit with the fire drill the other day, but I have given you till midnight tonight, but we do want to make sure that we get it done so that we're ready for our essay next week on Monday. And you guys don't want to be working on this all weekend long, okay? So have a great weekend, work hard in class, and I'll see you guys on Monday.